Welcome everyone to the first of hopefully many webinars, the first episode. I haven't done webinars for some time or podcasts for some time. The idea is that we give you some really tangible takeouts. What can I take away from this session that I can use today to help my business? What can I do myself? It doesn't need us to necessarily have to be in your pocket to try and help you with everything. There's a few things that you can do right now that would make a difference to your business. So we want to give you some of those key things, and some of them are basic. Some of them are things that we know, right? It's just that sometimes we need that little bit of a reminder. Sometimes we need to, okay, yeah, I'm behind in my inventory. I've got 30 cars, 40 cars. I've got some customers who've got over 1,000 cars in backlog at them, right? The US floods, for example. I've got a customer that bought a whole 400 or 500 cars out of the floods back in Florida. When was that? September last year or October last year? It was 6 months ago, put it that way. And, they've stopped inventorying because they're just too busy. So they've spent all this money on vehicles, but, they've got that challenge with inventory and so forth. So we'll talk a little bit about that. As I said, the idea will be to give you 5 or so takeaways that you can use in your business. And of course, we all want to deal with it today. And one of the things that I've spoken to Rob about and potential other future panelists is that we also need to think about tomorrow, right? We can't just be in today and forget about tomorrow, Rob.
Correct.
Yeah.
Looking forward and having a plan.
Having a plan, making sure that we can deal with the things that we need to deal with that are short-term, will deliver a result short-term, but that are going to help us in the future. And there's so much change happening, as we know. We talk about that all the time, and I know change is a buzzword, but it's really, really important to do that. So let's jump into this, Rob. We don't want to make this a talk fest. We want to give people some value here. So let's jump straight into the first of the 5 steps, which is a basic one that we all hear about and do every day, but sometimes we don't do it quick enough, right? We don't deliver that result that the business needs, which is it needs inventory, right? We buy cars, we focus so much on buying cars, they turn up, and so many of us don't end up inventorying the cars quick enough, right? And that's money sitting out there in the car park. Do you want to add something to that, Rob?
Yeah, it's just, I'm a big believer in building your salvage yard from the back to the front, right? So, buying these cars, okay, we've bought the cars, we've got the cars somehow, and now they're there. And every second that they are not inventoried and we're willing and able to sell these parts, there is a problem, right? So you said the backlog of cars, all these things, depending on where you are in the country or what you're doing, and I'm going to lowball some numbers, and I'll say that, 70% of your sales normally come from the vehicles you've bought, or I should say the vehicles you've inventoried, Chris, in the last 120 days, right? I bought and inventoried 2 different things. Right. So making sure that what I've inventoried is where 70, and that's a lowball number, is where my sales are coming from. So if every day those cars are sitting there not inventoried, you're costing yourself sales.
Yeah. And that's money you've got out, right? So you've put the money out already. You've paid for those cars. You paid for them before they turned up, so that you're probably a week or 2 behind anyway. So yeah, get your parts into stock, get them. And the other thing there is getting them into inventory, into stock, is one thing, but making sure that they're done in a quality fashion. Your descriptions need to be right. Your grading needs to be accurate. Your images need to be right. So there's a number of things there that we need to get right. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, because the traditional sense of what we do and the way we've sold parts in the past has been people call us, or now there's chat functions through the Pinnacles and PowerLink, probably, I'm not sure, but where you can chat one another's salespeople and say, I need tag number XYZ. Okay, that's the traditional sense, but we're moving into a different era here. You know, we've got a situation, and you know, Rob, I do a lot of work from an eBay perspective and online, but the reality is that we're not talking to a lot of people anymore, right?
No.
Collision repairers, through things like Parts Trader, for example, et cetera, or CCC's system, don't talk to us. They see our part online, they see our price, they see our grading, they see the quality description. That's what we need to get right. So inventorying a vehicle today isn't like what it used to be 10 years ago. And I'm tipping it ain't going to be anything like we know it today in 10 years. So we need to think through that properly.
And I want to make sure that we're clear on, right, you know, the parts inventoried right and graded properly, not overly graded, not overly described either, right? I mean, a part that's, you know, if you want to use a Hollander 000 code or whatever you want to say, Chris, right, is supposed to be the like and the kind and the quality of what a 5-year-old door is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Right. We don't need, you know, there should be some a little wear. These are recycled auto parts. They are not perfect. They are not new parts. So you can do a disservice over describing as well.
That's a valid point. That's
right?
a valid
It goes
as
both
long
ways.
as long as you describe it accurately. And part of the challenge, you know, I know we don't want to turn this into a 5-10 minute piece on each topic, but
I told you it was going to happen.
I know. I sent, just for everyone's information, I sent Rob a list of you know, the 5 key things that I thought were relevant. We sort of brainstormed that and said, well, there's a starting point, because we probably could have come up with 50 that are really, really important. And even with the 5, he said, man, there's enough here for 10 podcasts. And it's true. So anyways, but the reality is that we need to also think of it in the context of what we describe and how we perceive that part, because it is a perception. You know, what you might have 3 inventory people in your business, all 3 will see it slightly differently. Okay, so now we've got a collision repairer who's coming at it in a different context as well, and he or she is looking at it and saying, well, that's not what I see. So we need to get some kind of parity or some kind of common denominator in the way we talk to our customers, and what is good, what is bad, what is appropriate and what is not, right? So,
you know, consistency, right? So consistency to me is, right, is paramount to this, is that everything that we're talking about has to be consistent. Everything that we're going to run through today, I'm not just doing it for a couple days. I'm not just doing it once in a while. It's consistency through the process.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Rob. So one of the things we've done in the UK with the Vehicle Recyclers Association over there and eBay is we've set up the independent certification program. And we involved collision repairers, mechanical repair shops. We involved people like insurance companies, multiple insurance companies were part of the build of that program for multiple reasons. And that was critical. Consistency of whatever we do was really important. And it's even more difficult. I mean, it's hard enough doing it as yourself. If you're running your own business, it's even more difficult trying to do it across a group of 100 different recyclers, which is where we're at in the UK. I think there's around 100 recyclers that have been independently certified now. So, you know, in the US, you've got groups like PRP, for example, and others. You've got the big, you know, consolidators now, they're groups in their own right, slightly different to a PRP where they're independents, but it's a challenge to get everyone to do it in a consistently good way over and over again to deliver that same result to the customer, right? So if I'm buying from this group as a customer, I want to know that whether I buy from Rob or Chris, I'm going to get the same quality product. I'm going to get it with the same type of service and so on. So you're right, the consistency is critical there, Rob. All right, yeah. So sorry, mate.
No, go ahead.
Again, just in the interest of not sort of falling into the trap that we said we shouldn't fall into, Rob, let's move on. But we've got a question here from Simon BM. Sorry, Simon, I don't know what the BM stands for, but should a recycler prioritize higher valued vehicles first by what's already in stock, or just process them in turn as they come in? What's your view on that?
My view is if I'm consistent and I'm buying a consistent number of vehicles that my factory can produce, and I'm inventorying them, and Chris's 72 hours is about 24 hours longer than I would say, but I know he's being fair to some people. But if I'm doing that consistently, I'm never going to run into that problem. I was oldest first. I, again, ran everything like a factory, like a machine, like a watch. It was tick, 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 tick. So if you're doing things in that manner, you'll never have that problem. And when we fall behind, I still stuck with it. Oldest first. That has the longest rent.
Yeah.
Right. I looked at every car sitting there inventoried is a rent. An old part on a shelf that's sitting there not sold is increasing the rent.
Yeah. And I think the challenge with cherry picking vehicles out, and I know it's easy to do because you've got a $10,000 vehicle here versus a $1,000 vehicle. I want to get the $10,000 vehicle in as quickly as I can. Problem with the cherry picking is that we can often fall into the trap of that $1,000 car never gets done, right? But there are sales on that. There may be a lot of good sales on that, right? So I think it makes sense to go oldest first and just do them in some kind of a cyclical way, right? And do it the same way all right through. Often, sometimes, you've got customers that are looking for, the drivetrain on that $10,000 vehicle, and you're going to make a $10,000 sale straight up and recover the cost on that. So you want to get that inventory. So there's always a scenario or multiple exceptions to the rule, but I think that's the right way to go, Rob.
Right. And if all your cars are inventoried and you're in the process, your dismantling lists are going to be cherry picking what's sold. Allow the orders to cherry pick. Just get it in inventory.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so inventorying vehicles as quickly as possible, doing it accurately, doing it with good descriptions, doing it with images, good images, etc. Really, really important. And remember, this is something that you can do today. So tomorrow morning, we can make sure that we've got a process in place to inventory our vehicles quickly, whether it's within 72 or 48 hours, whatever that is. Get it done quickly. Okay, so let's think about tip number 2, building a network of trading partners within the industry. We're often looking to advertise and find new customers and, whatever out there. One of the things that a lot of people ask me, a lot of friends ask me, Rob, how do you start an automotive recycling business? Where do you start? Where do you find your customers? And I think it's one of the nicest businesses to be in the context of a customer. If you're on, and these days, any of the yard management systems in the US, not so much in the UK and in Australia or New Zealand, but we've got Pinnacle that you can see one another's parts on. In the US, everyone can see everyone's parts, doesn't matter what system, whether it's PowerLink, CarPart or Pinnacle, doesn't matter what system it is, you can see each other's parts and you're inter-trading. And some of the work that I'm doing with a number of the customers that work with me at APS, we're looking at some of the numbers, and usually in their top 30 customers, at least 20 are other recyclers in the US, right? So
Absolutely.
The beauty here is that we've got our trading partners that we can work with from day one. And they don't care if you've been there for 1,000,000 years or 2 years or 2 weeks. If you've got the right part on the right day at the right price, they need it and they're going to want to buy it from you. So we've got that environment where within the industry, within what you could call your competitive landscape, which really I don't like that topic because we're not the competitor. Other recyclers are not the competitor. But you've got customers there straight away. So they're trading partners that you can work with. Rob?
Yeah. Before I became, I like the word, I like the word coach, Chris, better than consultant, but I was lucky enough to be at the first facility that I was at for 23, 24 years, something like that. The second facility that I went to, and the third before I kind of semi-retired to coach, The last two were very small mom and pop yards, not a lot of customers, not a lot of things. And I was very successful in a short amount of time, helping along with the team. And, I was one piece, but helping build them up very quickly. One way. It wasn't flyers. It wasn't coupons. It wasn't a road salesman, Chris. We allowed the factory to work at the maximum capacity that it could. I bought a lot of cars. We inventoried them really fast, and we took them apart and got them online or got them on eBay or got them wherever you are. If you build it, they will come. And I'm a firm believer, to steal from the movie Field of Dreams, all you need to do is produce the widgets. Now, the better widgets you buy, the better you buy the cars, the right, those are a different thing. But if you build it, they will come. To me, it's that simple.
I agree 100%. But I want to take this a step further, because the point, tip number 2 says build a network of trading partners. And I think the really important thing here, and Stuart Addy's got a question there, we'll come to it in a second, Stuart. But the really important thing there is that we need to invest in more than just the vehicles that we are dismantling. It's not just our inventory. It's our relationships with other recyclers. In this case, that's who we're talking about as the customer. It's our relationships with other recyclers that we need to build that will help us intertrade, right? So we are human, right? Humans deal with other people that they like, other people that they know, and they understand how they work. We work on relationships. And I know, Rob, you talk a lot about relationships, but that network, that networking, right? We've got URG coming up in a couple of months. And I know that, there's a myriad of other conferences that you have, smaller conferences, state conferences in the US, especially, that are so important. Go to those conferences because you will build a network of trading partners there that you haven't before. So if you're not doing it, do it.
Absolutely.
So, sorry, Rob, go on.
No, I was just going to back it up. It's just that these are the things that you have got to immerse yourself in this industry and friends. I mean, this is how you and I met. Right. This is the connection. It's auto recyclers, it's vendors, it's remanufacturing companies. It's all different levels of people that are allowing you to sell your parts or say yes to your customers more, or make sure that you're on the upfront of the technology. Right. And all these things, there is so much happening. You've got to stay at the forefront of that. But it starts with being around and with your peers.
Yeah, I agree totally. So Stuart Addy's asked the question, is it an industry standard to give trading partners a higher automatic discount over the wholesale customer? Rob, I'm pretty sure you're going to love answering that one. You love giving discounts, don't you, Rob?
No, I don't. But there are some discounting networks in the US. There's a different percentage. There's different things. The US is spread out a little bit more than the UK, right? So, I mean, you and I were lucky enough, I was lucky enough to have you let, Mike and I be involved a little bit with some of the UK stuff that you did, right? And you're talking about a smaller area, but if I've built a relationship and trust with a customer over here, and he likes me and he likes my service, why shouldn't I be able to buy the part from the salvage yard that's, 30 kilometers away? At least you're getting a piece of the action now, right? This guy's my guy already, right? That relationship building's there. Are discounts okay? Yes, maybe to a reason, but I will say that if it was Stuart that asked the question, all of the discounts in the US have caps. So if it's 5, 10, 15, 20%, Stuart, there is a cap. There are some minimums. There's commodity or core splits. There's other things involved in that. If I can build a good trading network with someone, sure. But as long as I'm buying from you as much as you're buying from me, and we're sharing the discount between each other.
We want to get a balance of trade, right?
Yes.
If we look at it as two nations, we want to find some kind of balance in trade. But I think it also comes down to, Rob, often again, the numbers that I look at with a lot of recyclers, you mentioned before, 70% of your sales, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, whatever, happen in the first 120 days. The reality is I can guarantee you that a decent automotive recycler is hitting at least 50% of their sales in the first 60 to 90 days. Okay, so if we're buying at a 50% cost of goods, we've recovered our money within that first 50 or so days. If we're buying at a 50% cost of goods, and then we look at it and say, okay, what's left after 120 days? Usually what's left is the slower moving, obviously, right? So what's left on our shelf, 80% of our inventory that we choose to, I'll say, hoard or
Great word,
whatever you want to call it, 80% of our inventory is usually slower moving stock. We're looking at it from a pinnacle sort of selling recommendation deal. It's usually sell it and discount type stock, right? So we also don't want still sitting on the shelf. If I had the opportunity to move that at a discounted rate, often I'm going to do that. And if that means that I sell it to you because you've got a relationship with the collision repair around the corner or on the other side of the country that just happens to like buying from me because you've got a relationship with him or her, then so be it. I want to move my stock and I want to get that cash back into another vehicle.
right? Turns. And to just add, I don't want to snowball this, but there are some trading groups that are out there that may be on the consolidator side a little bit, but they do not trade or discount until after 90 days.
That makes sense.
Which is right. There's a million different ways to do it, but let's be honest, most of your warehouses are full with crap or they're filled with returns.
100%.
Right.
100%.
And especially, for some of the UK guys that are Pinnacle that are on here, if it's Hollander, it's called there, whatever. But, making sure these tools are in there for you to look at and look at, how quickly you're moving your parts, right? That there's really probably only about 20 part types making up about 80% of your revenue, right? All that data is in your system. Right. Learn how to use those reports in there and be a part of that. Sorry for the Hollander Pinnacle confusion thing.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We get confused plenty. So we've got a couple of people from the UK and New Zealand on this call, and I'm picking on them especially because they do not intertrade very much at all, right, in both of those countries.
I see those names on there.
Yeah.
I know some of those. I've talked to some of these people.
You have.
Right.
But they don't intertrade very much at all, right? And we never used to intertrade here in Australia until probably the early mid-2000s, when a few of us started coming over to the URG conferences and ARA and sort of started seeing everyone talking to each other about tips and tricks that they've got or sharing ideas and talking about trading with one another. Trading with one another. Why would you buy from your competitor? And it really dawned upon us that we've got so many sales sitting out there in one another's businesses because we say no 40, 50, 60% of the time from our own inventory. So why don't we intertrade and find that product? So especially, I know this is second nature to the Americans on this call or the North Americans on this call, whether you're from Canada.
Not all Americans. Not all.
Not all. Okay.
Not all.
Many that I've met.
The successful ones have learned the lesson a long time ago.
Yeah. So, but for other countries, it's still a little bit of a how would I put it? A new type of idea, right? To actually buy from another recycler and on-sell their part, because the thinking is, but I'm going to take on their problem and I'm feeding them, etc., etc. So, anyways, number one is start networking. Number two is start buying and selling one another's parts. And then number three is worry about how much it is for, because if you're not selling it, you've got no problem to actually deal with, right? You're not selling it at all. So let's sell it first and then deal with the problem of how much for at a later date.
And the key word there, selling the part.
Sell
I
it.
don't care. I don't care who I sell it to, as long as I sell it and they pay me. Right?
You're such a salesman.
I thought you were going to throw American at me again, but
No,
okay.
no, no, I wouldn't do that, Rob. Wouldn't do
Okay.
that. Okay, let's move on. Tip number 3, invest in your most important. Your people are critical to you. We all know that more today than ever. The one thing that comes up every single time, if I had a penny, a dollar, a pound for every time I heard this from people when I'm speaking to them, is I can't find people. I can't find good people, right? My inventory is behind because I can't find people to do my inventory properly. I can't get parts onto eBay because I can't find someone to put my parts onto eBay properly. I can't process the right amount of cars because I haven't got dismantlers. They don't turn up. And there's one New Zealander on this call that I've had this discussion with plenty of times, haven't I, Brent? So there's
You said it, not me.
But the key here is that it doesn't matter who it is. I can name every single name on that list of people on this call, and we've all had the same discussion. Okay, so invest in your people. Invest in your people. Give them the training they need. You know, and often so many people say, "Yeah, but I'm going to train them, then they're going to leave." And I usually turn around and say, "Yeah, but what if you don't train them and they stay? What's going to happen then? Then you've got someone that's untrained, that's delivering substandard results, sitting on your books, being totally inefficient." Right now, whether that's from dismantling to sales to management, train your people. Rob?
How many people quit the job or quit the manager? When
Well,
someone quits and leaves, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why.
yeah.
I understand maybe someone left, they got another, they're going on to better themselves, right? God bless them, right? That's great. Perfect. No problem. Shake hands. But are they quitting the job or are they quitting the manager?
The manager or the organization as well, right? The organization,
correct.
as far
Yeah.
as, you know, the
By
culture.
that management. Correct.
Yeah.
Is there enough support there?
Yeah.
We buy new trucks, we buy cars, we buy fancy loaders and fancy fork trucks, fancy equipment. We buy all this fancy stuff for our place.
But we don't invest in our people.
But we don't invest in our people.
Yeah. And I think
and
that's
we wonder why we have those people.
That's so important, especially, again, I've got a nearly 23, 22 and a 20-year-old, right? And the current workforce is so much different to, I know, Rob, you're a bit older than me. You're a baby boomer, I think, or something like that, aren't you? So, but anyways, we won't go there at the minute. But I know that we talk about this a lot, but the current workforce, or the young people that are looking to come into work today, want to see some kind of progression opportunities within the organization they work with. They don't want to sit there dismantling cars all their lives. You know, they probably don't want to start dismantling cars let alone doing it all their lives, right? Not downgrading the fact that it's a really important job. But that's the reality. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They want to see an organization. They want to work for an organization that, one, looks professional, acts professional, is professional, and gives them an opportunity to grow professionally. Okay. And the best way to do that is to give your people training. Now, Rob, I know you guys do a lot, or you do a lot of sales training and so forth. And I know you and Mike do a lot of the user groups and so forth. But let's talk about some results, right? And how that helps the individual, your employee, and how that helps the organization. Maybe give us some tangible sort of results, if you like.
There's a immense amount of levels of some of the coaching that I do, right? Where I do a lot of individual sales training, group sales training, but on the management, the sales manager, the general manager, an operations manager, or ownership. I honestly, I think the number one thing that I've been the most successful with was coming in, and it goes right back to where we started, Chris, was who are we? What do we want to be? And what's the plan to get there? And for all of you, I'm looking at some of the people, the Anthonys and the Dawns that are on here. Rob is on here. I know some of the people that are on here. We find ourselves, Chris, going to work every day, just putting out fires and trying to get through the end of the day without a plan to succeed. And you know, that plan, that consistency, that finding the time is the most important thing you can do. And I think that's what most of the coaching I do is because I make a Dawn stop. I'm on with Dawn tonight, matter of fact, after our call, I make her stop and she calls a timeout in her middle of the day. And we focus about what we're going to talk about and what have we done the past week and moving forward. I truly feel, Chris, it's the plan. And not only the plan, it's the philosophies that we come up with, Chris. You and I have talked about pricing philosophies, buying philosophies, dismantling philosophies, picture philosophy, video philosophy, eBay philosophies. I need to know, what do I stand for?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of years I spent, I didn't know either. But you know what I did? I went to every ARA, I went to every URG, and I surrounded by a bunch of people that were a lot smarter than me. That's why I'm on this with you, Chris, right? Is I wanted to be around people that were smarter than me and ask a whole bunch of really dumb questions because I wanted all the answers.
So, you mentioned there's stopping and thinking. And again, we're busy. We're busy doing what we do. Automotive recyclers are busy putting out fires, busy answering questions from their sales team or from their pickers or whatever the case is. We're busy doing stuff every day. The day-to-day, I've got to get this done. And yeah, they're important. You need to do them. They're urgent, right? We often find it really difficult to just stop and think. Stop and think about what do we need to do here? We treat the symptom, not the cause, right? We put the Band-Aid over the artery that's leaking or whatever the case is, as opposed to stop eating KFC or McDonald's because that's blocking the artery, right? Yeah. So we keep on eating the McDonald's and the KFC and we've got the same problem in 2 years' time. So we need to start stopping. We need to stop and take a deep breath every now and then and jump on a call with Rob. I've got one of the recyclers that I deal with in the US that we just jump on a call every now and then. We'll spend an hour on the call. He'll throw some ideas at me and we'll talk. Now, don't charge for that. We don't do any. It's just we talk. We have a good time with one another. I like talking to people about some ideas that I may have. Some of them are relevant. Some of them are totally wrong. He knows his business better than anyone. But the idea generation is critical. The workshopping is critical. I have some people we talk to sometimes with regards to some of the eBay stuff. And it's ironic because they're telling me why eBay is not succeeding for them. They're actually telling me why, but they haven't got time to stop and have the proper discussion because, can you hold on a second? I just got to pick up this phone. They're stopping the noise, right? They've got to stop that noise in the background. And not only do they pick up the phone, they do a really bad job at it because they're not focused. So we need to focus, I think, on more strategic thinking. I just wrote an article a couple of weeks ago on thinking more strategically and investing strategically. Your people are critical to you. We all know that. It's the old adage, people are your most important asset. So invest in your people. They're really, really important. And without them, you can't run your business. Okay. All righty. Whoa, I've gone the wrong way, Rob. That's no good. Let's go that way. Tip number 4, understand your numbers and embrace the support that's out there to help you get better at what you do. So many people in this industry have got an amazing amount of data available to them through the yard management systems, probably too much, to be honest, and therefore it becomes really difficult for them to work out what they should be looking at, what they are looking at, what it means. Now, what does this mean? Is it good? Is it not so good? What is a good number, right? What is a good break-even days? What is a good cost of goods? How do I work out my cost of goods? There's a whole heap of different things that I know that you guys at PTC work with your user groups on. But those are critical things that you need to understand and the other thing is this, the quality of the data. Again, the North Americans do use their systems a lot better than most other countries. And there's a lot of data there that they can use and get a better result out of. But we need to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they export the data, Chris, and into all other things and Excel and Access and all these other programs and stuff. But I'm going to tell you, because I was one of them, Chris, I was afraid of the data because I didn't understand it. And I was afraid to raise my hand and say, I don't understand it. When I was in profit team meetings, not doing them, when I was in them, the very first one, they kept talking about COGS in the meeting all day long. And then not until my way home did I say, I have no idea what COGS means. I didn't ask during the meeting. I should have, because I could have participated in the meeting, but I didn't know that it meant cost of goods. Then I said, well, explain to me what is, that's why I said, go places, go where, raise your hand and say, I don't understand. You know how many guys, Chris, I've worked with or started to work with that never had a P&L, never used QuickBooks, never had any kind of P&L, never looked at anything, never looked at any data to make any decision that what you're doing. And I'm here to say with Chris or with whomever, you have to make all your decisions based on the data.
Yeah.
All of them. Including, keeping employees, what's the return on it? All those things are based on the data, because at the end of the day, Chris, there's too many people that I see running these facilities and the plan isn't about making money.
What's the plan?
They don't have one. They come to work and just do it over and over and over. They just do it to do it. And they have enough money to pay their bills and buy some more cars and maybe get some turkeys on Thanksgiving or something. I don't understand that. And Chris, this industry has some of the hardest working people, but I had a great week was I worked 80 hours. I'm like, I worked 30 hours and I was way more profitable than you because I worked a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Just because you were at the facility for those hours doesn't mean that you worked really hard.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that a lot of automotive recyclers traditionally have been lucky enough to be in an amazing industry that you can make good money in, right? But it's getting tougher and tougher out there. I mean,
it's way tougher. It's way tougher.
And I can tell you from the numbers that I look at, again, I'll regionalize it a little bit. That North American market is tight. I mean, I look at the profitability per vehicle in the US. It's half of what the profitability is in other parts of the world, right? So there's.
But what they've done, Chris, is they learned how to maximize the factory. So the margin's shorter, they just do a higher volume.
Yeah.
Right. But there's, you're a little smarter than me, but the private equity people that are coming into North America and buying these yards aren't coming in because they're losers. Right. The private equity companies aren't coming in to buy losers.
It's 100% correct. So look, where do you start with this? One, understand your numbers. What should you be looking for? How can you use that information to make better decisions, whether they're buying decisions, whether they're people decisions, whether they're process decisions, right? And some of this data isn't necessarily just sitting in your yard management system. Some of it could be, let me go and have a look at how I'm doing my dismantling, right? And by, some of your PTC peer groups, Rob, you'll have different organizations that will say, well, how many vehicles do you process per week? Or how many are you processing per week? That sharing of ideas is critical, because if I'm doing 5 a week per person and you're doing 10 a week per person, I want to know what you're doing, right? Is it a different type of vehicle, or are we doing the same car? Okay, we're doing the same type of car. How many parts are you taking off? Same amount of parts. Well, I've got another issue. One of the things that we did, back when I was in the business, is we did a time and motion study on our automotive, on our dismantler. And we said, you're one of the most important parts of this business. You're our manufacturing hub. you manufacture parts that we can then sell. So we need to understand why you're doing X amount of vehicles per week. I think it was like 4 or 5 cars a week. It wasn't that many. And what it could go to. And literally, we found that 60% of his time was being wasted. Right? It was being wasted by other people around him asking him to do something. Go and check this, or go and get that for me, or do this. So what do? I put my tool down, I come back. So our manufacturing facility, which is our dismantling part of our business, was only 40% productive at best. And once we said, okay, no one talks to you, you've got a full-time job and it's a really important one, he started turning out 12, 13, 1 week he did 15 cars, right? Within a month of us making these changes. And he was so happy. Why? Because people take pride in what they do. And they feel good when they get a good result. Obviously, they want to make more money as well. But understanding that number, understanding what it was and why it was where it was, and what we needed to do to fix that, helped us deal with that issue of production. Right? So we need to be critical. Now, Stuart Addis sent a comment. Return on employees is a good question. Need to talk about this after this meeting, Rob. So Rob, expect a call from Stuart. But yeah, I agree. Return on our people is really important. We don't look at it very often. It's not something that we think about.
I always had, I have simple analogies, Chris, right? If I had a sales office that had 4 seats and I have a dismantling building with 4 lifts, I looked at them just like barber chairs, right? I need to get a guy in there that can do the most haircuts. If I'm getting $2 a haircut for his rent, I need a guy that can do the most haircuts. So Stuart, it's simply looking at those abilities and what is the rent for the seat.
Yeah.
And I don't want salesmen doing anything but selling parts. I don't want indoor dismantlers doing anything but dismantling cars. I can get a whole bunch of other do-it-all guys around them, but if you've got the skills to sell or indoor dismantle, that's what you need to be doing all day.
And you, as the owner, manager, company, whatever it is, need to provide them with the environment to do that within and the tools to do it with. So many times people say, yeah, he's my dismantler or she's my dismantler. And okay, that's broken. How are they supposed to do their job? And then you're on their back about why they're not producing enough.
Right. The lift guy's doing oil changes on your delivery trucks during the day. Yeah.
Crazy.
Send it to Jiffy Lube or wherever. Quick Lube, some kind of lube, but not lube, that guy.
Lube it somehow.
Yes.
Goodness me. All right. Excellent. Thanks, Stuart. Great question or comment. Okay. Let's get into tip number 5. Reinvest wisely so that you don't miss the boat. Now, I'm being a little bit, and this can probably lead into our next session, Rob, but we've been talking about a whole heap of things that we can do today, and they're critical, right? All of the things we've spoken about are really, really important. We probably could have spoken about another 30, 40 or 50 of those things, okay, that are relevant, but we can't. We haven't got time. We haven't got, everyone's busy, as we said. But we reinvest, and what we usually call reinvest in this industry is buying another salvage vehicle, right? Because we've been taught, buy the car, strip it down, and you'll sell the parts. Rob, build it and they will come. Field of dreams. It's true. It's true. We've got the part. It's the right part at the right price at the right time. It's going to sell. But I think we need to get smarter with our reinvestment. Reinvestment in this industry now needs to be more about what's happening, not only today, but what's happening tomorrow. Where do we need to be so that we're relevant in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? There is just, and I know everyone talks about change and it's the buzz and whatever, but there's just so much happening out there. You know, my work with eBay, the stuff that I do with some other organizations, insurance companies, etc. There is so much happening out there. If we don't reinvent ourselves within our own organization, our own industry, we're going to miss out on we're not going to be part of the game. We're going to be selling the little widgets that, you know, we happen to pick up the dregs here and there. So we need to start reinvesting wisely. And that, in my view, is about strategic thinking stopping, spending time, chatting to advisors, to people that you work with, going to these conferences, workshopping ideas, doing your PTC group sessions, whatever it is, stop, take a breath, and think about what you need to do for your future. Rob?
You wrote, Chris, we don't have a crystal ball. You don't, but you have a bunch of data that you can look at that can give you insight to make a better prediction of what the future may hold. And again, another one of all the kids, I call them kids, they're 30 in my class, meaning in their 30s, but another, they call them Rob's dumb dad analogies. But I say to my boys, right, Chris, you said you have two children, 20 and 22. My wife and I have a blended family of 8, and they go from 22 to 32. And when the boys were a little younger, we have three that are 22 now, but when the 3 were 16, right, and some of the others were mixed in, I'd say, guys, the friends and the girls are outside the house. They're not going to come through the Xbox or the PlayStation, right? Hey, recyclers. Hey, Stuart, get out of the house, right? Brett, get out of the house, go somewhere and meet people and see it and feel it and smell it and touch it and ask these questions and stay ahead of the technology that way. It's not going to come to you. You have to go find it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so much good stuff. I was talking to one of the New Zealanders a couple of weeks ago about the URG conference. They said, we've been locked down for the last damn 4 years with COVID. We haven't had it. And I said, you know what, in the last 4 years, there is so much that's changed. There are so many other tools available that you didn't have 4 years ago. One example is JC's, the VinMatch Pro. That's amazing. Yeah. Right? It really is amazing. I can guarantee you no one from the UK well, I shouldn't say that because they've been to ARA a couple of times, but not many Australian, UK, New Zealand recyclers would know what that is. And not necessarily that it can help them in their region, but to understand what's coming through is really, really important. And to understand the effort, the likes of, and again, I'll mention them, the likes of eBay. eBay Motors is putting such a big investment into the future. Right, we need to look at that, right? Where they're going to build a new Walmart over in Australia, we've got, the big hardware stores called Bunnings, right? Property investors look at what Bunnings is doing in 5 years, 6 years time, where they've bought lots of land and planning on opening a new Bunnings because they're these huge warehouses of hardware, because they know that that's where they need to invest. Where are the eBays investing the money? They're investing the money in the automotive recycling industry right now. They have been for the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in the UK since I started working with them. In the US, you're seeing it now over the past 12 or 18 months. Significant investment, right? We need to be there. If you're not selling stuff online, eBay, whatever else it is, you need to think about what you need to do to be in that game, right? And it's not good enough to say, it's too hard. It's not good enough to say, oh, yeah, but those customs, they don't know what they want and they order the wrong thing and whatever. And then you look at the listing and it's not clear as to what you've got. There aren't any part numbers on it. You haven't invested in it, right? We need to invest in the future, not only in buying another salvage vehicle. And the biggest part of that investment is invest in time. Take time out, go outside the house, take a deep breath, go to the conferences, spend time there. You might think it's time away from your business, but it's the most important time in your business that you're going to get. So please reinvest wisely and take action now for your future.
Chris, are either one of your kids that are 20 or 22 going to a brick and mortar parts store to buy a part for their car? No, they are not. Right? No, they are not. They're picking up their cell phone and they're looking on here, or they're bringing it to a garage and saying, hey, send the bill to my dad. Right? That's what they're doing. They're not going to a brick and mortar store. These kids don't know how to work on their cars anymore. And I don't say that insulting. I've never worked on a car. I've worked for cars forever. I've never changed oil in a car. I know where the oil goes. I never check it, but I know where it goes. Right.
Yeah.
So again, times are changing. Employees are changing. All these things are changing. You've got to be a step ahead.
So, Rob, I'll give you a real story and then we'll finish up. My wife's mother, Honda CRV, sat nav system, something's wrong with the sat nav system, takes it to Honda. Honda says, yep, $7,500 for a new sat nav system. Okay. So Chris is in this parts game. Chris gets the call. Chris, we've got this problem. I said, get me a part number, blah, blah, blah. So they call me. What does Chris do? Chris knows a number of different recyclers in the Australian market that he can pick up the phone and ring. Chris goes online. Chris searches, does this, uses the Google machine, searches what's out there, types in Honda CRV and a part number. Bang, pops up. There was one that was available. There was more than one available, but one popped up with a part number on eBay. I looked at it. I saw who the seller was. Good seller. I bought it. I actually didn't even ring them. I bought it on eBay. I wanted to test this out. I bought it on eBay. I could have run 50, 60, 100 recyclers to check for that part. Forget about it, kids. We're doing it now as well, Rob. I'm
in Florida. You brought it up at the beginning. So I winter in Florida now. If I'm not ordering any food, takeout, pizza, all that McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken you talked about. If I can't order the pizza on my phone and pay for it and have it delivered, I'm not buying from you. If I can't see a good digital menu on my phone, I'm not coming to your restaurant.
And if it hasn't got a decent review,
right, I'm not going. Everything I'm done there, and we're old. I'm older than you. I'm not doing it unless it's right here.
Yeah. So let's learn from that. Let's think about that. That's where the customer is. That's where they're going to be in the future. They ain't going to get any less. So yes, Dawn, they are good topics, and we do need to think about a lot of this. So glad you got some value out of it. We appreciate you taking the time to be on this call. We'll send out a recording of this. I thought I'd put that photo of Rob. Thanks to the marketing team for putting this together for us.
I'm laughing because we're an hour long and we said we wanted to keep it to 30 minutes. So we only doubled it.
That's terrible. Sorry, guys. Hopefully you got value out of it though, right? And there's so much more that we can talk to. Again, our goal with this is to share information, share tangible takeouts, things that you can take away with you today and do. There's a number of things I think that we did there that you can straight away take away and put in place. Look out for the podcast. You can stream the podcast really anywhere. It will probably be available in the next 24 hours. You'll get a copy of it, like our PTC YouTube page, our Auto Partner Solutions YouTube page, Facebook, all of that stuff. You know where we're at. And look out for a few more of these. We've got some other really exciting guests that we want to have on. So thanks for attending, and yeah, have a great afternoon if you're in the US, and anywhere else in the world. Good morning to you. Rob, closing comments?
Just two things. One, I want everyone to know that it was Chris's marketing department that put a picture of him from 10 years ago on here, and one for me to make him look so much younger than me in the picture. And two, I will get on these calls and talk about this industry at any time. I love talking about it. I'm passionate about it. I'm happy to do this with Chris, and I just enjoy it. And I hope that somebody took a tip and they're going to go back today and use it and do it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. Talk soon.
Take care.
Cheers.